Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to do the 10.9 patch notes. So, as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. Check out the rest of the content as well. We do tier lists and patch notes for every patch. I stream every night starting around 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Usually go till about 3 or 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a wonderful, very chill community. I try to be as conversational as possible, hanging out, talking with the chat, explaining what's going on in the game, talking about random old man stories or current events or just anything that people want to talk about. And then we have a lot of other content on the channel as well. Tons of champion guide, topical guides, how to micro better, how to macro better, dodging, one tricks. And we have an entire playlist of coaching sessions as well with over 200 coaching sessions. So you can go through, flip through those, hang out, learn a little bit more about your favorite champions. Or if you want to sponsor a coaching session yourself, just stop by the stream or email me at thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com. Let me know what you have in mind. Just $25 for non-members. If you are a member, then it's just $20, and it's just $5 to become a member. So it's basically like a free membership if you want a coaching session. It's just $5 a month, either with that join button on YouTube or just through a monthly PayPal subscription. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. All right. So they're changing up Bard first. The W movement speed is decreased, and then the E magical journey is on a longer cooldown. I don't think this is going to impact him too much. I mean, it might. There's a chance that it could. I thought that the last nerfs they gave him with the meep damage was going to really do a number on him, but it turns out it didn't really matter that much. So a lot of Bard is just his utility, right? His ultimate just has a lot of power to it. He has a lot of early game pressure, especially against melee champions. And he still is going to have a lot of mobility to get around the map. I mean, yes, this does look like a lot, and maybe it's going to be more than I think, going from 50% to 30%, but you got to remember, this is only for a second and a half also. It is a longer cooldown, but typically you're just going to be casting this like once just to give somebody a little burst of speed. So that might matter. I mean, I don't know the exact math on that, but maybe they can't move 100 more units or something with that speed, and maybe that, you know, lets him or lets his allies get caught more. I'm not sure, but I don't feel like it's that big of a deal. And then the magical journey, 2 seconds. You just don't spam this a lot. You know, you usually use this once to get away. So maybe, you know, I'm not a Bard expert. Maybe this does change certain timings. Like maybe before you could zip around the map, you know, on cooldown, and make certain routes that no longer you can make, or you're going to have to, you know, wait a second or two to make that same sort of rotation. So I'm not really sure. I don't play a lot. He's one of the most specialized supports in League. You really have to understand the terrain and how you can manipulate the terrain with Magical Journey to really appreciate that ability a lot. Like, there are little weird places where you can, like, go from the fountain, like, almost all the way down to your tower, to your first tower off of Magical Journey. So, I don't know. I don't think it's going to change it that much, although I don't really understand why he has such a high win rate to begin with. Like, he's interesting, he's cool, but I'm just not sure that I fully understand why he has that high of a win rate. So, anyways, yeah. So it you know, maybe that hurts him by a percentage or two, but I don't think that's going to affect his position too much in the meta unless there are other supports that rise up and challenge him. Okay, Cho'gath, Vorpal Spikes. So I don't think this is what Cho'gath is missing. I mean, it is going to give him some more clear. Now, this would be interesting for, like, jungle Cho, but it's the early levels don't matter. It's just later levels, and I just don't even know what you max on him. Like, the big problem why Cho'gath is not picked a lot top is there's just better champs. Like, there are so many tank-breaking champs up top. And if you want, you know, a CC machine top lane, you're better off with Maokai, or potentially Ornn is still really strong too if played correctly. So I don't know. I feel like there are just better options than Cho'gath in the top lane. You know, he can just get bodied by a lot of those champs up there. You know, the Darius, the Sets. I feel like there's just so many things that would have good matchups into him. He does have pretty good burst damage. I would almost prefer him mid rather than top, because he can still get pretty good burst damage if he lands his full combo, especially if he gets a little bit of AP in there. He can do some decent bursts, and just the fact that he has so much health makes him difficult for assassins to kill. Now, those bruiser champs that I mentioned before can kill him, but assassins would have a harder time. You know, Zed's going to probably have a harder time blowing up Cho'gath. in the mid lane. So he does have some utility. His ult obviously can do a lot of damage. It seems like he could be interesting in the jungle. I just think his clear is a little bit slow, but I'm not 100% about that. I haven't tried it out. So it's okay. It's a nice buff. He's one of those champions where it's possible people have just forgotten about him, so it's a little dangerous to buff him too much. Because, you know, there have been metas where he was very oppressive, where he just, like, runs in with Righteous Glory and just, like, chomps the backline and just about one-shots the AD carry. So I'm sure a lot of AD carries aren't going to miss that, although AD carries don't miss anything because everything kills him. But anyways, so I don't think it's going to be a huge difference, but if it is, it's probably just because it's going to wake people up to a build, like some unusual build with him that people hadn't thought of, or some matchups they hadn't thought of before that brings him back to life. So I don't think this buff itself is going to make that much of a difference, but it might put a spotlight on him where people sort of tinker with him a bit more and find out some way to get him back into the meta. Although, obviously, it's nice. Okay, Fiddlesticks. Fiddlesticks just has huge problems right now. I mean, it's basically just old Fiddlesticks with a crappier E. I mean, that's pretty much it. Like, I thought he might be a little bit better, especially, like, middle sticks. I thought he might be able to push out with his AoE drain, but it turns out it's just not enough damage to push efficiently. Unless people haven't tried it out a lot, I thought he was going to be maybe a good counter pick to Assassins in the mid lane, because he could push really hard with his drain and just drain tank through, you know, their harassment and just constantly push him in, and then he's got his point-click fear. So I thought he might be a good, like, mid-champ, but he's just bad everywhere. So they're giving him 20 more damage on his E, which is okay, but I feel like you don't max that, right? I mean, I'm not 100% about... I almost never... Every time I see him as a support, he just feeds most of the time. I do think that... I think he's way worse as support. I get asked about this on stream. What about Fiddle's support? The thing that made Fiddle's support before, like, pretty good in certain metas was his E was, like, pretty much guaranteed hard push on the wave and harassment. It's almost impossible to dodge that unless you completely backed off of the wave. So he was an interesting combination of just, like, hard push and poke. So he was great with things like Caitlyn or Senna or just other stuff that had long range that could harass in the laning phase. And so you had this, like, perma-push champion where it was very difficult to engage on him. Just gave you a free laning phase. And then he had his ult with a point-click fear. So he's pretty good at, like, starting fights, doing pretty high base damage with AP, and then getting that point-click fear off. So I'm not really sure. I mean, it's possible people just don't have the right builds with him yet. I mean, it seems like this should be able to clear quite a bit, but I mean, one big issue though is it only channels for 2 seconds. Like the old one used to channel for 5, and so you're gonna tear through your mana a lot faster. Total magic damage. So, I mean, that does do a lot of damage, and it is AoE. Oh, that's what it is. Okay, I don't remember if originally, maybe I just overlooked that line of text. Only does 40% against minions. Okay, so that's why he's not, you know, working the way I thought he was going to work in the mid lane. Maybe I overlooked that before. Yeah, so that's kind of crappy. They need to take that off of him. I think that would make him interesting. It's just like a hard push roam champion. I mean, let's be honest. He's not that dangerous compared to other, like, hard push roamers out there, right? Like your Kianas, your Talons, and things like that. Like, he has pretty low base movement speed. He doesn't have any dashes. He's got his ult, but would it really be that bad if he could just push the wave? I mean, maybe what they could do to compensate for this is he doesn't heal as much off of minions or something like that. So the damage is reduced by 40%. Oh, it is. Okay, so his heal percent is also pre-mitigation damage. Okay, so he doesn't heal very much off of minions, and he doesn't do damage to them. So maybe keep the heal, like, pretty weak so that he can't just, like, permanently sustain up on the minions, but allow him to damage them so he can push more. Maybe lower his mana cost. I don't know. He needs help, and I just don't think it's it. Like, this is not, you know, 200. It's got a very low ratio. It only, you know, 1.25 seconds. I mean, the 850 harassment range is good, but do you really want to max this as support, though? I mean, 850 is pretty good range for 2, but 210 just feels so low. Like, Nami's wave does 210. It's not 850 range. It's like 725, but it also heals, and it just scales way better. I don't know. I just feel like E is not what you want to be doing. Like, the cool things about Fiddlesticks are, like, his Bountiful Harvest and his Terrify. Like, that's the stuff you want to be maxing, I feel like. Maybe you don't even max Terrify because the cooldown is so high. I don't know. I think they're just playing it too safe with him. I think he's been the biggest failure of a rework in a long time. He's up there. Because most reworks are pretty good. Like, usually they come in, like, strong, you know, and they have to nerf him back a little bit. But this, I think they were just playing too safe with him. So they are giving him some, I think they gave him another buff a little while ago. Maybe bring this mana down a little bit. Maybe have him start at 50 and go up by 5 or something. Because he's just going to get bodied in the jungle most of the time. And there's so many good, like, anti-AP things out there right now. You know, you've still got your Hex Drinker, your Maw Malmortius, and then your Spirit Visage. Like, all of these items are very common right now. And, like, his support can get a Locket, and that just ruins his day. Like, it's just hard out there for a lot of mages, unless you do, like, extremely high sustained magic damage. I know people think that, like, mages are OP, and sometimes they are, but there's a lot of counter play, I think, with itemization to a lot of mages out there. If the mage doesn't snowball hard off a double pin item, or it just doesn't do, like, an absurd amount of damage, like Zoe or Syndra or something, it's tough. I mean, he does do a lot of damage, but I don't think it's going to be enough. That's final verdict. You know, maybe he goes up a percentage or two off of that, but I don't think that's what he's missing. I think it needs to be something with his drain. I think that's the most interesting part of his kit. So they need to make him do more damage to minions or lower the mana cost or both, something like that. If they want him, I think, you know, having him as a niche mid lane pick as an anti-assassin mage CC, you know, champion is unique. There's not a lot of other champs that are like that can team fight, have good CC like that, and have that kind of push. So I think that's really, you know, what they should explore more with Fiddlesticks, and just having him be a flex pick between mid and jungle could be interesting. And support, perhaps. Although, the thing that made him good as support, you know, was the E. Like I said, that it was perma-push, easy poke, and that's just not there anymore. But he could be an interesting middle sticks into things like Katarina, or Talon, or Zed, or something like that. I think that is really the most interesting spot for him, but they got to remove that minion penalty or reduce it a lot. Okay, Gnar. Now, I've seen a couple of Gnars, like, really go hard in my games. Now, these are in, like, the Smurf games that were in gold. But he feels like he's pretty good. He's better than people think right now. So this is kind of dangerous. He did get a couple of buffs. I thought he was going to be, like, an on-hit Gnar build was going to be really strong, potentially top lane or jungle. But that just didn't really materialize. The thing about Gnar is it's just, like, stats are, like, his itemization is just so bizarre, because part of him, you know, is this ranged, like, on-hit heavy damage dealer, and then part of it is, you know, he's like this bruiser champ, and you can't control it. You know, I maybe it'd be too strong, but I think it would be more interesting if he could control it. I think if you could control his ult instead of having to transform, so if he was more like Shyvana or something like that, if he just filled up this bar over time and you had the option to go into Mega Gnar if you wanted to, but you could stay in Mini Gnar if you wanted to, I think that's ultimately what they need to do with him. Now, they might need to nerf his numbers or nerf other things to do that, but I think that's going to make him a lot more viable in solo queue. In pro play, when he is played, you know, his numbers are just too strong. And, you know, because pro players could teleport down there right when he was about to transform and then transform and go in. And I know that's part of, like, the skill of Gnar is trying to time your transformations, but I just think it makes it too hard to itemize. Because, you know, you might want to itemize for this, like, ranged on-hit bully. You know, maybe you want to go for something like Blade of the Ruined King, you know, in the laning phase with Gnar if you're against a melee champion. You just want to abuse him with your range. I think that is interesting. And I think that you could also go for the tank Gnar, right? If you want to go for something like Black Cleaver and Death's Dance and, you know, stuff like that, you could do that and get tank items. and then you could hold on to your ult, you know, for the team fight and do it whenever you want to do it. Now, maybe they could still have his rage fall off out of combat so that you can't permanently hold it. Maybe that's a sweet spot there where if he's out of combat for 10 seconds, then his rage starts to decay or completely falls off. Kind of like a, I don't know, a rumble bar or something like that. I think that's what they need to do, honestly. I think that would be cool because then you can't just like permanently choose what you want to do. There's still some nuance to it. You still have to get some timing. You have to auto attack the minion a wave a lot, or like auto attack some minions or monsters or something like that in order to build up your bar and then teleport in. But it gives you a little more freedom. So you don't have to Gnar, you don't have to Mega Gnar immediately when you show up if you don't want to. Or you could Mega Gnar immediately if you want to. Or, I mean, I just wish you could stay in mini Gnar until you want to Mega Gnar, because then you could go for that on hit. And I think that's like an interesting build, is like the W, you know, the Hyper Max. With something like Blade of the Ruined King, Nashor's Tooth, or something like that. I think that would just open up and make him a lot more versatile, make him more controllable, you know, give you more agency in playing him. And I think that would make him a lot more fun, and that would open him up to the jungle a bit more if you could do that. So that's what I would really like to see you do, is just be able to control his transformation. And like I said, if they need to lower his numbers because that gives him a lot more consistency, that's fine. But I think if they keep raising his numbers like this, he's just going to eventually be too strong in pro and still like relatively inaccessible in solo queue at lower brackets. Because it just requires too much coordination and like proper TP flank and planning and stuff like that. It's you have to have a flank ward there, your support or somebody else has to ward for you and set up a fight around your vision so you get a good flank. It's just too much for solo queue. So, I don't know. So, is this nice? Sure, it's cool. I like it. I like Gnar as a champ. I think he's got a really fun design. It's just not being able to control the rage, I think, is still going to be a problem. Although, like I said before, I have seen some really good Gnars popping off in some games. So, this is certainly nice that Mega Gnar is going to feel a little bit better here. Shorter cooldown, he can spam his Q more often, and then Crunch is going to do quite a bit more damage with 30 more damage, so he might be good again. Top lane, we'll see. Okay, this is a massive nerf to Karthus. This is huge. It doesn't seem like a lot, but this really is a big deal. 10 movement speed on a champion that doesn't have any other movement speed, who's super vulnerable to getting invaded and beaten up. And it's just gonna be really brutal. I already feel like Karthus isn't that great in lower elo brackets. Like, he's still kind of a scourge and like challenger. People hate him because he's just too consistent, and like your team will play around him and protect him and ward for him, and it's just hard to get a hold of him. But you know, I feel like in normal levels of play, there's so much counterplay to him now. You know, people can get that Edge of Night, which is actually viable now. That's a hard counter to him on a lot of AD champs. You can still get things like Maw of Malmortius, Hex Drinker, you know, just any tanky champ with like Spirit Visage or any sort of healing, any enchanter with like shields and things like that. You have to have so much AP on Karthus a lot of times to really crack through all of those defenses. I just feel like there's a lot of stuff in the meta, especially at lower brackets, where people you know, are going to start getting a lot of gold, and, you know, there's going to be one champ that's a huge problem that's got, like, 10 kills. And Karthus has a hard time dealing with that. Like, he's much better in slower, you know, metas where he can just power farm the jungle, everyone's not dying. I mean, yes, he does like everyone to be dying all the time so that he can finish them off with his ults, but it's on such a long cooldown, and they've already nerfed, the Presence of Mind, and people don't go ulti hunter on him anymore because you need Ravenous Hunter to help you with your clear and your health. That, you know, people die so much in lower brackets so often that you just can't even ult a lot of the times, and they just start scaling and just getting ahead of you. So I don't know. I think there are other power farm junglers that can be similarly strong. AP Shyvana is pretty strong too in the jungle, so I don't know. I'm not like super sad to see him go though. I tried him out. There's a lot more skill expression to him than people think. Like landing those Qs in traffic when you're like under a lot of duress is tough. When there's like someone chasing you is just about to kill you, and just kiting perfectly and landing those Qs, especially sometimes predicting what their movement's going to be or like where their flash is going to be for that last Q. there can be quite a lot of skill expression with Karthus. But I just don't think Jungle Karthus is healthy for the game. A lot of people in Challenger hate it, and that's fine. So it's not going to impact. I mean, it's going to suck at all levels of play, but he was already weak, I think, in lower brackets of play, and this is going to nerf him just a massive, massive amount. Like, it can't really be overstated. I mean, he's gone after this, I'm pretty sure. He's just not going to be able to clear fast enough, and people are just going to invade and just bust him up, and he's not going to be able to get away. Okay. Kayn. So a big part of Kayn, kind of like Gnar, is really cool transformation champion, but you don't have enough power to choose. Like, they just need to, I mean, it's cool that he has this duality, but give people the power to control him, right? You shouldn't be beholden to, you know, like, maybe your team needs the tanky red Gnar. They usually do. Like, the blue one is almost always a bad idea. But maybe the enemy team just doesn't, like, you just can't get their tanks. Maybe they don't have tanks, you know, on their team, and that's going to stop you from getting to red Gnar. Now, I think it's not tanky. I think, isn't it range versus melee? I don't remember his exact transformations, but maybe they have a lot of ranged, and this is going to force you to go for those melee orbs. Maybe it's going to force you to try to get ganks topside if that's, you know, their only melee laner is the top, and you've got a really weak lane up there. You know, maybe they have like a Darius or something, and you've got like, I don't know, Rise or, you know, something like that early on in the laning phase. And maybe it's just a bad idea to gank that lane. Maybe they're getting busted up. Maybe that Darius is already 3-0, and you're like, well, I guess I gotta try to go for him because I need red transformation. But it just forces like bad decisions. Like, it is interesting that it's like, you know, enticing you to go for certain types of champions to get certain types of transformations. I think that's interesting. But once again, I think that it's more interesting that you would be able to choose based on how the game's going which one you want, right? Do you want to choose red or do you want to choose blue? And just make it up to you. To just give just one orb, just make people gank and get the orbs or whatever, and then you get to pick whichever one you want to transform into, right? And you could even have it to where if you have a bunch of excess orbs after you transform, maybe you could switch and transform to the other one if you want to mix it up later and throw people a curveball. I mean, they itemize pretty differently, so that's not entirely necessary. But, you know, I just think that letting him choose, let Gnar choose when Gnar goes Mega, let Kayn choose which form Kayn wants to pick. Get him online faster. You know, he should be online at 10 to 12 minutes. I don't know how fast he gets online now, but his base form just feels extremely weak a lot of times. I mean, I think that there are lots of cool things about Kayn. You know, I think that he does farm really quickly. You know, he is mobile. His tank form is interesting. I mean, I think with builds like the new Death's Dance is probably really good on him. You know, being able to go something like Conquer, Ravenous, Death's Dance, with something like Black Cleaver and just go for that kind of build, and then just like building tank after that, Spirit Visage or something like that. I think he could be a pretty cool like CC, you know, just sort of disruptor healer, but he's just too inconsistent. And I mean, it's a shame because he's a cool champ. He looks cool, you know, he's edgelord champ. I don't know. I think it's sad that it's just because like I just think that they're taking too much control away from the player, and that's what feels bad. I think with that, it's limiting your options a lot, just like with Gnar, and they just need to add more consistency. Once again, if they need to nerf red form because you can reliably get it more often by ganking anywhere, fine. I would rather see numbers lower, but have more interesting choices from the player's perspective. Okay. Okay, Ice Queen isn't ever present anymore. Alright, so Lissandra's an interesting champion in the meta, I think. Like, having another, like, lockdown CC mage middle, I like that. Just anything that stifles assassins, I like it. I mean, I'm definitely biased because I don't really play assassins. I don't like that playstyle. The high-risk, high-reward playstyle is just very contrary to what I like to play. And I think it feels bad in solo queue because that allows one person to just run away with the game a lot of times by feeding on your weakest members. So I know a lot of people love assassins and they're fun and that's like the cool playstyle, the one shot, and you got to keep the kids happy, man, you know, but I like that there are more things that can potentially counter that, because like Malzahar and Lissandra really haven't been that much in the meta, and so I think that it's cool to start nudging them back in a little bit, even though you have to be careful because they are really consistent when they are in the meta, and they can take over pro play and be kind of an anti-fun type of champ potentially. But Lissandra can start fights too. She's not just like a defensive CC bot. Like, she can start fights and, you know, make some aggressive plays too. So I like her. I think she's a cool champ to have in the meta. Will this bring her back in? I don't know. I'd like to see her as support. I think that would be a lot of fun. I'd like to see a lot of stuff as support, but her Q cost is just too high at early levels. So that's what I think. But she would be a pretty cool support. An engage AP champ as support would be fun. I know Scott's going to say, but Echo, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Echo support can work, but anyways. Okay, Nami. This champ's been really strong for a while and was under the radar for quite a while, but I think people are figuring her out now. She's got a pretty high pick rate, I think, recently, so they need to nerf her early game a little bit. I know there are Nami lovers on the channel, and I like Nami a lot too, but 54% with 11% pick rate is pretty over the line. And the thing is, she's so consistent. Like, that's the thing. You just point, click, W. You can't really miss it. Yes, hitting bubbles is good, you know, but at the same time, you know, you just have such powerful trading, especially since they nerf the damage on things like Nautilus, Leona, numerous ADCs, Aphelios, Jhin. You know, all of these things have been nerfed, so that means that it's a lot harder to burst her out, and if she just gets to take little light trades like that. They also nerfed Sona and Soraka a lot, and that was some of her main competition as far as like healings or scaling healers. So I think this is good. This is a good way to do it. I guess I would have maybe just hit her W, just knock 10 damage off of her W in the early game, but this is an interesting way to do it. So they're lowering her health. That's really low health, but it's only 14 health lower. I mean, how often do you like walk away with 14 health? Like, it happens, but really, like, not that often, right? And then the mana dropping down 12 mana, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's like a fifth of a wave. You get so many fairy charms early on, regardless of your items, whether you're going Athenes or you're going Ardent Censer first. Mana is usually not that much. Like, before your first back, you can run out of mana, but after that, you know, you come back with 2 or 3 fairy charms in the laning phase a lot of times, and you know, it's mana is not really that much of an issue on her after a while. And usually you take mana flow band. In fact, you always take mana flow band. So I don't think that's a huge deal. Now, this one right here is interesting. This is kind of what they're doing, the Bard treatment. They're lowering your the amount you can speed up other people, which this does matter quite a bit. I mean, lowering it from 60 to 45, once again, this only lasts for like a second and a half, so I'm not sure just how much movement that is, but that might be like maybe 100 units less, maybe 200 units less, and that can be the difference between surviving and not, or catching somebody and not. So now she can spam this a lot more than someone like Bard can, so I think this is going to be a lot more impactful because it's every ability does this. So like your W can bounce around to multiple targets. You know, your E can work on people. Your bubble, if you hit your own allies with bubble, it speeds them up. And your ultimate. Remember, your ultimate, I believe, gives double speed. It's either double or triple speed. I think it's double speed if your allies run through it. So a lot of people don't think about that aspect, and a lot of people may not even know that she has that. But if you're on the back line and you throw your W and it rolls over like 2 or 3 of your allies and then goes to hit the enemy, it gives a very large bonus movement speed. Or if it goes through the enemy and then hits your ally who's trying to run away, it gives them a really big movement speed. So if you read it here, hitting them by any abilities gives so much bonus movement speed. Did it always have the AP? I guess it always did have the AP on it. For 1.5 seconds, doubled when they're touched by Tidal Wave. So when the Tidal Wave goes through your allies, it gives them a huge boost of speed for a little bit. Now, the fact that it does have this AP ratio on it, typically if you go Athene's Ardent Censer, which is very common on her, and then you have like some standard runes, you'll get pretty close to 200 AP between like 150 and 200 AP. So that's 40, so that'd be 85 at that point, kind of in the mid to late game. It'd be 45, so it'd be 90 total. So you would have had 105, and then it goes down to 90. So that's not as big of a deal. It's like 15% or so less bonus movement speed. Early game, it matters a lot more because going from 60 to 45 is losing, 25%, losing a quarter. But later on, only losing 15%. We'll see. I think this will bring her down a little bit, maybe a percentage, maybe two. I mean, maybe this matters more than I think it does. It definitely, because she has multiple AoE abilities that trigger it, and every single ability can trigger it, is going to be a bigger deal on her than it is Bard, so maybe 2% down. I think she'll still be really good, though, because her trading is intact in the laning phase. It's just the mobility that you give your team, especially inside of team fights when you can hit multiple people with all of your spells, is going to matter. But I think she'll still be pretty solid, though. Probably, like I say, like 52, something like that. Okay, Quinn. Near sight. Okay, so they're giving her 1.75 blind time. Okay, I mean, that matters. Is Quinn really that... They have nerfed Darius several times. That has brought him down a lot, and they have nerfed Set quite a bit. So that definitely improves their matchups, and they're buffing the Sanguine Blade. This is a pretty big buff. 5 extra AD is equal to... 175 gold, 35 gold per bonus AD, and then you're getting 100 free gold on the combined cost, so that's 275 gold. I mean, that's a big swing in efficiency. A little bit longer. Why? Maybe 15 minutes. Eddie, what are you doing? So the fact that they're buffing Sanguine Blade, which is a great item on her because she wants to split, and they're increasing this. I mean, this is going to help her out a lot, especially against ranged champions. Is her matchup really that bad? It's like, I saw a Quinn, I think we ended up beating her, but she was causing some serious problems top lane with that roam. Yeah, I mean, she's not that bad. She's 52. I mean, the thing is, they're nerfing, like I said, they've nerfed a lot of stuff. Top lane, I mean, they've nerfed Ornn. I mean, that was a huge one. Any tank up there is, eventually going to be a huge problem for her. So they've nerfed Ornn because she gets lethality most of the time, and obviously lethality is not that great in armor. Anything that can stack armor. So they've nerfed Ornn. They nerfed Darius. They nerfed Set several times. They nerfed Garen several times. Both of those champs are still like... No, they're falling off. Wukong is getting a couple of nerfs. We'll talk about that. He's been nerfed a few different times. Karthus is kind of popular. I guess there's not that many popular champs up there that have a high win rate. I mean, top is kind of falling down. They've nerfed several top laners. The Darius is down to 51. Garen's down to 51. They were at like 53 or 54 in the last 4 or 5 patches. Yeah, I could see it. I mean, the big roams are quite nice too. So I think this is going to be very nice for her. Getting things, going Sanguine Blade into something like Ghost Blade could be a really big deal. So I think Quinn is, I think this will move her up 1% or so. I think I could see her getting a 53%. I mean, I think she might actually be a problem if this is going on. Now, I don't know what else she gets. I mean, what does she get? Let me just click on her and see. I think it's still just lethality stuff, right? Oh, the Blade of the Ruined King buff doesn't matter that much for her. Because that was for melee. Like the Blade buff a few patches ago. People are taking Glacial Augment, huh? That does help her out a lot. That does give her a lot more sticking power. Really? People don't do the lethality anymore? Okay, I guess I'm just not up on her build. Wow, that's interesting. And she like actually wins a lot more late games. People are building her with a more late game build in mind with crit. I guess Blade does kind of make sense. I'm not sure, but I think Sanguine Blade will definitely come back into the fold if she's going for like split a little bit more, which is usually what she does. Sanguine Blade actually has a higher win rate than Blade the Ruined King right now, like a percent higher, although people don't pick it as much. But yeah, I think this is going to be a big deal. So it would be 55 attack damage, 15% lifesteal. Why not? Why not like Conquer or something on her? If you're going Blade, you already have a slow. I mean, I guess this would apply the slow field off of Glacial Augment. I mean, that's interesting. You don't see that combination a lot, Glacial Augment plus Blade of the Ruined King, but that does put the slow field on him, so it slows him for like quite a bit of time, and that does give you a bit more utility in team fights. So you can create an AoE slow if you do need to show up to team fights. That's pretty interesting. Is it an active? Active. Okay, so Storm Razor doesn't work there, but Blade would. Huh. I'm gonna have to check that out. I haven't seen a lot of Quinn. I did see one, like I said, that was kind of terrorizing. I don't remember if we won that game or not, but it was definitely like causing some major problems around the map. I think we did end up winning, but she was causing some issues. Velocity Materializer. Is that really better than Conquer though? I mean, I guess you only get one stack on Conquer for ranged attacks. You're not really looking for long fights. What about, like, press the attack, though? I'm not really sure. But either way, I think this is good news for Quinn. Right? I think she's almost certainly going to want Sanguine Blade. That's going to be good. And a direct buff to her as well on a champion that's already 52.5%. They've nerfed out a lot of her competition. I think Quinn is probably going to be the biggest... I think she's the biggest beneficiary of this patch. I'll have to think... I mean, who else is going to use Sanguine Blade better than Quinn? It would have to be a ranged split pusher. I mean, like, you could have, like, top lane Vayne or Lucian or something like that, I guess. But the Quinn with... Quinn with Sanguine Blade plus Blade of the Ruined King would be a lot of sustain, a lot of healing. I think that would be solid. And I don't know what else you would get on her, but Lethal Temp, maybe Hail of Blades or Lethal Tempo or something. Why not Hail of Blades on her? Just to throw that damage down as fast as possible. I don't know. I think people will find a build that will be even better on her. Maybe that build is better than I think it is. The interaction between Blader and King and Glacial Augment is pretty interesting, though. I don't think I've ever seen that. Okay, Trundle. Trundle, I think, is one of the best junglers, if not the best jungler right now. He's really, really good, especially in pro play. He has like 100% presence. And I wasn't really sure about him at first, but I've been playing a ton of Trundle, and I can tell you he is very, very strong. He has a really fast clear, not like the fastest in the game, but pretty dang fast. Like, typically I can clear 4 camps before I get to Scuttle, so 4 camps, then Scuttle, and if you get the Scuttle, that usually pops you level 4. So it's really nice. He can actually fight early on too, that W, and you press the attack and your Q for the auto attack reset. You can do quite a bit of early game damage too, and a lot of people just don't want to mess with that. Also, I think Pillar's bugged. I'm not sure if this is intended, but I'll talk about him a lot more in my jungle tier list, so stay tuned for that, probably coming out tomorrow. But if you pillar and you hit the crab, a lot of times it'll just basically sit right next to the pillar, and it looks like it's disabled the whole time. Like, feels like you do a lot of bonus damage to the crab. So I think it counts as disabling it if it's standing on the pillar. I'm not 100% about that. I haven't done the exact math in the practice tool, but it looks like the crab's taking a heck of a lot of extra damage when it's sitting on the pillar, even though it's just a slow and not a disable. Because if the crab gets disabled, stunned, or rooted, or something like that, it takes extra damage. But the slow off of Trundle's pillar seems to trigger that. even if you don't knock him up with it, even if it's just sitting there on the pillar, it seems like that happens. So that gives him like really fast scuttle clear. He can fight over scuttle early with a lot of other junglers. Pretty fast clear, healthy clear. That's a big deal too. I mean, when I come rolling up full health after clearing 4 camps because of his passive and his W. Like the extra health regeneration that you get off a W applies to your potions. So your potions get an extra 25% efficiency, and then it also applies to your passive. So whenever you kill something with W down, you get a lot of extra efficiency, and it applies to the healing on your smite. So usually I will smite, if I'm going like bot side, like red, golems, blue, gromp, scuttle, I can save one of my smites, and then just like smite either the blue or smite the gromp, and it just heals you for a ton. And then his itemization is really strong too. There's so many different things you can get. Usually Cinderhulk into Titanic Hydra can be a really good build. Or you can even get utility items on him, you know, like a Knight's Vow. A lot of people do things like Knight's Vow or Frozen Heart or Gargoyle Stoneplate. Like, you can abuse a lot of these little cheap items that aren't full price tank items because you get to steal a lot of stats from them with your tank. So you can even get things like Zeke's to help out your AD carry. If they're running like an Enchanter support or something like that, they're not going to get Zeke's, they're not going to get Knight's Vow. You can get that. Knight's Vow in particular is really good because the extra healing that you get off of your partner doing damage gets amplified by your W. And if you choose to get Spirit Visage, it gets amplified by that. So he's very, very strong right now. And obviously, he really, like, busts up other enemy tanks. That's the main reason he's played in Pro, is he just, like, takes all of their stats, basically. So I think he is very strong. Now, and he's got a good win rate in solo queue, too. Someone was saying the other day, oh, I don't think he's that good in solo queue. He's good in Pro, but not in solo queue. It's like, well, he's pretty good, I thought. I thought he had like a, yeah, there he is, like a 53% win rate. I mean, that's pretty dang good. And a pretty high play rate, too, for a jungler, like 5%. So, and he's got good matchups into everything. I think Wukong might be kind of a tough matchup, and everything's a tough matchup into Wukong. With these other three, I think he's got a really good matchup into them. So yeah, I do think he is really strong. So they are nerfing his ult by 20 seconds. This is probably fine. I mean, like, you can still function without your ult, and like, especially for ganks. Like, you don't need it for a gank. A lot of times you just roll up and, you know, press E, slow them. If they don't have a flash, they're dead most of the time. If your laners have a pulse and they follow up at all. So it's nice, but you can still function like as a champion without your ult. So now you don't typically get a ton of CDR with him, which, you know, makes the 20 seconds hurt a lot more. You can get Knight's Vow, which is good, but like Titanic doesn't have CDR on it. Cinderhulk doesn't have CDR on it. So that, you know, that extra 20 seconds is going to stick on Trundle more so than it would on other champs. Now, if you do get Frozen Heart, which is becoming increasingly popular on him, then that does mitigate that a little bit. But yeah, so it's okay. I think maybe he goes down a little bit off of this, like 0.5% or something like that. Maybe a whole percentage point. But I still think he'll be 52 plus. I still think he'll be pretty strong. It doesn't change the fact that he has great clear, great itemization choices, great, you know, dragon taking potential and things like that. So I think he's still going to be really good. But this is probably a fair nerf. He is a little on the strong side, especially in pro play. I mean, 100 seconds is just, it's too low for most ults. Okay. Wukong. So this champion is way too strong, and he's been way too strong since release. We've seen players quickly and effectively harness the power. Yes, like, immediately on release, he was like 56%. Like, don't act like people are learning it. It's like the champ's broken. Like, his design is ridiculous. Like, who thought of all that? You know, being like, let's give him 2 knockups, AoE. Let's give him 2 blinks. You know, where he can go invisible on one of them. You know, and just, it's like, what the hell? Like he was already good before the rework. Just nobody played him, but he almost always had like a 53 or 54% win rate. He was just very niche. A lot of people didn't play him. So, anyways, so they've nerfed him quite a bit. He still has a 54.5% win rate. He can be flexed top or jungle. So they're taking his base armor down by 3. This is a pretty big deal, especially in the jungle early on. I'm not sure how healthy He is. Like, I've never played him in the jungle because I assumed he was going to get nerfed. He's just obviously way over the line, and so I didn't want to bother buying him on my Smurf and practicing him, but they're nerfing Crushing Blow by 10 early. Okay, 10 in all ranks. That is going to hurt his clear a little bit early on, especially. Hurt his trading in lane a little bit, but Warrior Trickster clone damage is down 5%. Okay, that doesn't matter too much. That's a nice slap on there. I think he gets that last. That's not too big of a deal. So, like, the 3 armor in the jungle, it depends on how healthy his clear is. I don't think it's going to matter that much, but it will add up. And his Crushing Blow, this probably matters. Is he going to get, like, Sanguine Blade top lane, though? Probably. I think... Oh. What else? I mean, he likes bruiser items. But Sanguine Blade does give lifesteal. It's being played mostly... Triforce. Win rate seems to fall off a little bit late game, but still good. Takes Conquer. Does get some lifesteal off of Bloodline. I feel like he'll probably still be, like, he'll be good. I mean, like, a worst case scenario, maybe he can, like, if he needs more healing, he can go Fleet instead of Conqueror. That's probably bad, but if he's already going this secondary, like, he could go Biscuits as well, which, once again, is not ideal, but, like, you could find more lifesteal in there. Maybe he could go, like, Ravenous Hunter or something like that. I don't know. I think he doesn't he max like his Nimbus strike, his E or something. Yeah, he maxes this. So this wasn't even nerf. So I think that's a bigger nerf to top lane Wukong. Let me see his Nimbus because that's jungle Wukong. I feel like he's strongest. I don't know. He's strong in both lanes. What's his win rate in top? I mean, when a champion's like basically 55% in 2 different lanes and is like really popular and is banned all the time, it's like some serious problems. But so they didn't nerf Nimbus, and that's what he maxes. So is that gonna matter too much? So it does 80 magic damage. Does it hit everybody? 2 additional enemies. Each one strut. Clones can block. Non-targeted attacks or abilities. Okay. Huh. Five percent. Okay. So he still gets a lot of attack speed for 5 seconds. Isn't there something that like lowers the cooldown on this too? Refresh while spinning. There's something goofy like that. Oh, that's this one when the clone attack. So I don't know. Like, it's not nerfing his main ability on his main clear. Like the Warrior Trickster, you just get 1 point in that anyways. So that doesn't matter. Crushing Blow apparently doesn't matter as much. Like 10 damage is important. If that was his max, if that's what he got. Like that would matter in early levels for the jungle, but because you're only going to get 1 point in that early levels because you're just maxing your E anyways, you know, I just feel like it's not that much. The armor is the only thing that I have a question, but I feel like you could change your itemization if that really is a big deal. You could get more sustain, or you could get a little more armor somewhere in there, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. So I think he's still going to be over 54%. I just think he's way too strong. Like they're just tiptoeing around him. They've already nerfed him like 10 times. I mean, he's basically Silas 2.0. Just way too much stuff going on, and they're going to end up nerfing him 100 times. And Silas is still really strong. Like, anyways, okay, Sanguine Blade, we talked about that. Very good items on split pushers top. Immediately, you know, I think about Quinn, who can really abuse that as a ranged bully top lane. Who else? I don't know who else would want this. I mean, Vayne top. You see something like that. I don't think someone like Gnar would want it. Like any top lane ranged bully might like it. Maybe Lucian would like this. I just don't know if you're gonna get this on bruisers. I mean, maybe something like Irelia would really like this. There will be a few champs up there that are gonna really like this ability because it gives out what's the attack speed on it again? It's pretty high. I know they nerfed it. Is it still like 40% or something? Isolation at level 1? Let me just look real quick. I know we're running out of time here. Okay, so they did update the cost here. It goes from 100% to 150%. Oh, they did. Okay, so it's 20% early on. But by the time you actually complete this item top, it's probably going to be, you know, like 34, 37%, something like that. Um, yeah, it's still going to be solid. So yeah, I think that'll be good. I'm not sure if it's going to like completely like totally alter the meta top. I mean, it might. Like, would Zed want something like this? Like maybe Zed or Talon would want something like this in mid lane also. I'm not sure, but I think Quinn will be the big one. So there will probably be a couple of things that people will point out. You know, like I said, Quinn, Vayne, maybe Lucian in the top lane. Um, would a jungler want this? Like a dueling jungler? I don't think so. I mean, this would help you clear clear your jungle faster. It would help you take barons and like rift heralds and stuff like that faster because you'd be isolated. Is it if you're just do you have to be near a champion or does this just work? Do you get the extra speed if you're just like clearing minions? One or fewer visible champions. Okay, so you get this just for like clearing. Maybe Trendamere, maybe. I think Fiora or Camille would want this. I don't know. Anyways, it'll win definitely, and there'll probably be some other ones that'll come in there and look at it too. Essence Emporium's back. Okay, cool. We'll check that out. Bug fixes. I didn't read these before I looked at this, so I'm not 100% like what's. Okay, yeah, I don't think any of those are really gonna matter that much. Um, Damage from items proc Dark Harvest. That's interesting. Who's that gonna matter on? I don't know. Maybe it's gonna matter on somebody probably, but Snap Trap now properly empowers only one basic attack. So there was some kind of bug with Caitlyn's W. Okay. Um. Okay, so if you're doing Conquer with Misfortune for some reason, that's a buff to her. Okay, Mordekaiser, burst movement speed. Okay, so the clone doesn't... Okay, so that matters. The Nimbus Cloak, I guess, a little bit. Okay. So anyways, I think that's going to be fine. Okay. But that's going to be it. So I guess overall, Quinn, definitely a big winner. Wukong, still going to be strong. Trundle, still strong. Nami, still strong. So pretty good buffs without completely throwing, like... Or pretty good nerfs without completely throwing these champs under the bus. I think Wukong deserved more, but I think the way they handled Trundle and Nami is fair. And then the Kayn and the Gnar, just make them more reliable, please. They're cool champions. They're fun. They're just very unreliable. Karthus, that's obliteration. He's the biggest nerf, biggest loser of this patch by far. Fiddlesticks doesn't matter. Cho'gath probably doesn't matter, although once again, people are probably going to do their homework on Cho'gath again and maybe find a good build. Bard probably won't matter that much, but I think that's a quality nerf. If they feel like they needed to nerf him, that's probably fair. Okay, but that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Be sure to check out the tier list as I release them over the next couple of days. Come by, check out the stream. Starts around 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'd love to have you. Very chill community. And I'll see everybody next time. Have a good day.